We are hosting another Makers of Minnesota dinner at the Lexington in St. Paul. Not only will you be front and center with some of the best Minnesota makers in the Twin Cities, but you will be treated to a 3-course dinner compliments of Chef Nick from the Lexington, who will be using the featured maker's ingredients in all the courses he's making for this special event. Our October dinner is Tuesday, October 25th, and our featured makers are so fun, including Milk and Honey Ciders, who's making beautiful ciders at their orchard in St. Joseph, Three Bear Oats, who specialize in grain bowls full of delicious goodness. Also on deck is Taking Stock Foods. They've got these organic bone broths that taste amazing and are so good for you, as well as Olive Oil on Tap, who has formulations of specialty oils and vinegars that are out of this world. And speaking of out of this world is Mrs. Kelly's Tea. Mindy Kelly is truly a savant at blending the most beautiful, flavorful, aromatic teas, and she's been doing it for years in Northeast Minneapolis. I can't wait for you to meet her. I'm so excited to see how Chef Nick will use all these ingredients in this multi-course menu. We'll have a limited number of tickets for this special dinner, and when they're gone, they're gone. So go to thelexmn.com and sign up via Eventbrite for the Makers of Minnesota dinner. Get your tickets now at thelexmn.com and watch for details on our November 29th dinner, where Chef Nick will be cooking the book, The True North Cabin Cookbook, just in time for the holidays. So go to thelexmn.com to get tickets and sign up for my free newsletter so you're always in the know about any events I'm excited about or hosting at stephaniesdish.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Makers of Minnesota podcast, where we talk to cool people doing cool things. And I have wanted to talk to this group for a long time because they sort of took the state fair by storm. And it's this like story of this new product, but really that's not new. That's actually centuries old and very old in their family. So I am with Rana Kamal and Khalid Ansari, and they are with Baba's Hummus. And you guys, as a new food at the state fair, and I believe the year was it 2008? No, 2020. Was it 2020?
It was 2021.
Okay, 21, because you get so confused because we didn't have the fair for a couple of years. So, okay, new food, 2021. Yet with like arguably what could be considered one of the oldest foods, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about the hummus bowls and your state fair launch. And I want to hear the whole story about how you guys took this product that had been in your family for generations and I guess modernized it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to back it up a little bit and really talk about, our story and how it came to be. We come from an entrepreneurial family. Our father immigrated from Jerusalem, Palestine to the United States in the mid-70s. And he opened up one of the first Middle Eastern restaurants in Minnesota in 1979. And it was there where he introduced Middle Eastern food staples like hummus, falafel, baba ganoush, tabbouleh to a predominantly white community. So it was a very new concept. And if you ask him and if you ask his brothers, they'll tell you it was a rough start. But I think after customers started to trickle in and try the food, they kept coming back again and again and again. And the concept really stuck. And 44 years later, we're still standing, which is amazing. We're incredibly proud. So in 2015, Khalid and I were both working at the restaurant and we were doing all sorts of things like catering and marketing, but we knew we wanted to do something beyond the restaurant. And that's where the idea of Baba's sparked. We grew up in a Palestinian household. Our mother and father really embedded the culture and traditions in us. We grew up eating Middle Eastern food every day, home cooked Palestinian food. We spoke Arabic in the household. And, we ate the best hummus, whether that be, in our family restaurant or when we would go to Jerusalem in the summer. But we knew that there was something, or we saw that there was something missing in our community. And that was our food being represented, especially on the shelves of mainstream grocery stores. You could find hummus at the time in specialty grocery stores, or hummus was being made by big box retailers. And that didn't represent us, nor did that resonate in us. So we set out to change that with Baba's. We wanted to show our community what real, authentic hummus tastes like, made by Middle Eastern makers. And so in 2015, it started as a passion project. And it took a couple of years because we were both working in our own respected industries. And, we worked on the recipe development for some time and the brand iteration. And then in 2018, with a big leap of faith, we, crossed our fingers, we launched Baba's with 3 flavors, our traditional sriracha and red pepper. And we literally went from store to store to store across the Twin Cities, handing out samples, pitching our product, and crossing our fingers again that somebody would take a chance on us. And, the Wedge, Valley Natural, Longfellow were among the first. And we're so, so grateful to them. And, a couple stores turned into 20, turned into 50, turned into 100. And now Baba's is found across the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And we're starting to expand across the Midwest. So really excited for what's next.
I was at Kowalski's Market, I think yesterday, and noticed that you have quite a large selection of SKUs in the grocery store, which to me indicates that it's a solid seller because they only give you as much space as they think that they have to warrant to sell your product. Right. And I did notice dill pickle hummus.
Yep.
Can we talk about how that transpired? Because I would imagine that wasn't necessarily a traditional flavor for your family.
Yeah. Our tagline is modern Middle Eastern. And so when we think about flavors, we think about mashing up, Middle Eastern flavors and American staples. And I think that dill pickle is a really great example of that because we take our creamy, dreamy, traditional hummus, our hummus that, was created in the restaurant in 1979. It's a real authentic recipe. And then we blend it with an American staple like a dill pickle. And so that's how that one came up. We were like, what would, Minnesotans like, especially at the state fair? And, Khaled does a lot of the recipes over at our production facility, and he knocked that out of the park. And so when we introduced it, we weren't sure what people would think, but it did amazingly well.
Khaled, does that mean that there's like potentially some kind of a ranch iteration on the horizon? Because when you think of American, I don't know, culture, I always just think ranch really stands out.
Yeah, I mean, so at the state fair this year, to connect what you were talking about, we had a ranch flavored hummus. So it might be somewhere down the pipeline, but like Brenna said, it's definitely stands for what we do and what Baba stands for, bringing that authenticity, but also melding in our culture, which is Palestinian American. And we both grew up here in the United States, in Minnesota. We were both born here. So we have that kind of flavor portfolio of loving ranch and pickles and all of these American staples, but we also grew up eating this yummy hummus and Middle Eastern foods. So I'd say it's definitely potentially down the pipeline for sure.
When it's kind of an interesting time to be a business that is steeped in immigrant parents, because we have had a real reckoning, I think, in the culture of immigration, of diversity with BIPOC businesses. And also we're in this time of just complete intolerance as well for those immigrants. Yet we are seeing so much product that is coming out that is so delicious and lovely and really reflective of the second and third generation immigrant experience. It's such a weird dichotomy to be in this time. How does that feel as a maker for you to be sort of on the forefront of this is a really successful time for you, but it's also clouded in so much heritage of the immigration story?
Mm-hmm. I really think it's a great time to be a BIPOC founder. I think, like you said, we're living in a time that the world has never been more diverse, and we're continuing to be and grow in diversity. If I can, share my own personal experience, when I was growing up, as a Palestinian American, in Apple Valley, Minnesota, most of my friend circle were Caucasian, and I definitely stood out as being one of the only Arabs, one of the only Muslims. And all I wanted was to blend in, was to be like my friends. And I remember that, when my friends would come over, my mom would be cooking a Palestinian traditional meal, and my friends would say, "What does that smell?" Or when she'd speak to me in Arabic, they would, ask, "Why is she so angry when she speaks?" And I remember just thinking, like, I wish that the ground would just swallow me up right now. But, fortunately, I started to really turn and see how beautiful and amazing and incredible it was to be different. It was to speak another language. It was to be Palestinian. And I have two daughters now, and they're 10 and 6. And I've really, seen that change. I've seen how much times have evolved, like especially looking at their friend circle, they have friends from all parts of the world, and it's so cool to see. And I also see that it's really cool today to be, of a different background, to speak another language. And when it comes to Baba's, being a BIPOC founder right now, it really is a true honor that we are able to represent our community. We are able, to represent Palestinian Americans, Middle Easterners in the United States, and share the beauty of our culture and food, and really put our food on the map.
It's interesting to think about your third generation of your kids, because I do think, I think that the older generation is maybe feeling intimidated and maybe feeling left behind, because you look at any elementary school in anywhere in the country, and it's pretty diverse when you look around, and those are the leaders of our future generation. So I do always think, when I'm at my lowest of thinking, oh my God, can America get any worse? I do think, like, oh no, this is it. This is coming. These third generation kids are going to really change this. And immigration can get solved. We can assimilate people. We have done it at Ellis Island. Why can't we start having a better plan, more inclusivity? So I think that the more people meet people that aren't like them, and the more they taste your products, and the more they learn your culture and your history, it becomes less scary. And it's like, come on, people, let's just get on board. One thing that, go ahead.
I think that's huge. And I think that, like, to Rena's point, growing up, I remember my friends. I mean, they kind of, most of my friends were always at our house because it was cool and it was unique. And once people start to realize that diversity is cool, and I think in a community level, like in Minneapolis itself, the community and the diversity in this city is actually super strong, right? And once people start to see it and actually be a part of it, I think it's amazing, and I think it's cool how much people gravitate to it. And that was always something that stood out to me in my growing up was our house. And Reno will remember this. Our house was the house that was full of our friends. They were always at our house. They were always, trying our mom's food. And there was very difficult times, and there was a lot of identity crises, even for me as a child. But it was cool to see that so many people actually, diversity is cool. And for us to be able to bring Baba's to the front and show that diversity is cool, and to show that unique food and different food can be normal and normalized and be cool is really what Baba's, a big part of what Baba's is. And to show what our generation, or being a second generation immigrant, can be in the business world I think it's really a cool thing.
And then you come into a place like the State Fair, where 1.5 million people come through the doors. and there you are. And you're right next to New Scenic Cafe, who's doing a sashimi taco, a wonton. I mean, if you think about that, that's kind of crazy. And then, you're next to Spinning Wild, who are doing, the 55 flavors of cotton candy and the watermelon juice. That whole area really was a great addition to the fair. I love it. It feels like a little food truck alley right in the state fair. One of the things about hummus is, I think, the proper way to say it.
Hummus.
Hummus. Okay. Hummus. Yep. Hummus. I want to make sure I say it correctly.
It's almost like hum almost, but even like
it's hard to say.
It's a hard word to say because you kind of have to like swing it back down to your throat.
Right.
It's hummus.
Yeah.
Hummus.
Yeah.
Okay. It's very different in that it's got a lot smoother texture. And also, when we saw pita was like this very dry, flat, sort of puffy, but not really puffy. Real Israeli pita is so much more puffy and a little doughier. And that was sort of the presentation that I felt like you guys brought to the fair that was also different.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the concept with the fair, was just to bring, our authentic product to the front and to do it in a place that was very, very, very unique to a lot of people. I think a lot of people looked at the lists of foods and saw hummus and said, what the heck, and I think that was kind of our goal, was to bring something super unique, super flavorful, and to bring something that was just tasted good. And in this case was a healthy product as well. So with the pitas, those really hit off too, because they were more authentic to the point of, like you said, where it was, fluffier and stuff like that, but a small pita, that kind of was a perfect dipper for all those bowls too.
Yeah. And when you go back to Palestine and you really try pita, I think that it's really hard to find like a good representation of authentic pita, in Minnesota and, for the most part across the United States. But when you go back to Palestine and you sit at a small cafe in Jerusalem, you get these really, amazing, puffy little pitas, right? That just have come out of the oven. And I think Khaled wanted to channel that experience through our little pita puffs that we introduced at the state fair. And honestly, they were almost as popular as the hummus itself.
Yeah, that led me. I think I'd like to buy those in a store. So just note to self.
We are definitely working on that.
Oh, it's good, because that's a product that I think there's some innovation required that could really be great.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
All right. So you guys are now expanding Minnesota, Wisconsin. I would imagine you want to just keep going. You're not still making this in the basement of the Mediterranean restaurant, are you?
We are. Yeah.
Is there at some point a situation where you need to consider co-packing or?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. Well, so when we first started, like Rena said, in 2015, we were just figuring things out. We were doing a lot of recipe creation. We were doing just really figuring production and what that looked like. Being a restaurant, moving into food manufacturing is a really big step, and it's different, and it's not the same as you would think it is. So we started at the restaurant, just in the kitchen. When the kitchen wasn't working, we'd start early in the morning before they got in there. And then we ended up moving to a commercial kitchen where we did some of our stuff there. And then we kind of grew out of that. And that's when we built a kitchen in our basement of the restaurant. And that's really propelled us to grow. It's been a good avenue to do that. We've had to really learn how to be efficient and when you're in a basement, a 1,500 square foot basement, you really learn efficiency, and you really learn how to pump out as much product as you can in an efficient, correct way. And so basically, yeah, that's where we're at now. We started 1 day a week in the basement. We went to 2 days a week. We went to 3 days a week. Now we're 7 days a week, multiple shifts. And we are actually in the process right now of building a facility where we're going to do all of our production there. Actually, we're renovating a building. So that's going to be happening in the next 6 months. So that's kind of our growth plan here for production in the next 6 months to a year.
And was there a conscious decision to keep the production, I guess, in-house versus going to like a co-packer? And that means, you are still in control of making the product. You are hiring employees. You are running multiple shifts. It's kind of manufacturing at that point, which is also a different business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for us, it's fun to be able to do things ourselves. And it's also being able to control the product, like you said. I think for us, the product's kind of our baby, and we want it to be the way that we kind of created it, and we want to be able to have all hands on board when it comes to the production. So it was always something that we had talked about, me and Rena, that we wanted to keep that in-house. We talked to co-packers. We looked into that possibility, but at the end of the day, we knew that we could do it, and we knew that if we did it that way, we would be able to control the product and do it the way that we wanted to. You hear a lot of horror stories in co-packing. I'm sure there are a lot of very good products that are
Sure.
co-packed. But for us, it was definitely, just being able to control it, being able to do that. And honestly, also we enjoy it as well. We enjoy being able to do that. We enjoy being able to hire people, being able to create a team of people that can grow with us. I think that's always been a big thing for us. We've always wanted to be able to bring, restaurant staff, or just be able to create more people that we can grow with the company. And that's been one of the avenues that we've been able to do it.
Yeah, it's something to think about, because a lot of restaurants, I never thought about it that way, but a lot of restaurants get kind of stuck in that the upward mobility is sort of limited, right? Once you're at the top of the restaurant, but this gives you a whole nother angle with which to give people opportunities, or if people get burned out necessarily on what is a really difficult day-to-day restaurant job, maybe having some other options for them too.
That's actually a big part of Baba's in general. Is that was me. I managed the restaurant for 13 years, and at some point it is a difficult job, and it is hard on a family. And Baba's was a way to move some of that into more of a 9 to 5, and be able to do that with some of the staff that we have as well. So Baba's was a lot of just, there was the innovation and the creation and wanting to have this product out there, but it was also a way to take a step away from the restaurant and do something in a different way, and bring some of the staff in to do that as well.
You guys had this very short window with which to sort of get this state fair project going, right? You had about an 8-week window. I'm curious about financing, because one of the things that people don't think about with the state fair is you have to buy an enormous amount of product, because you have to be able to move an enormous amount of product in the span of 2 weeks. So how did you guys finance the truck, the amount of product that you had to purchase, and paying all the staff to get everything made in time for the state fair in an 8-week window? Did you take a loan, or how did that work?
Yeah, so the state fair, it was 2021. And I think we were talking to them in like May, and it started in August, and it was pretty funny. We were just like emailing back and forth. They liked the concept, and we had this picture of an Airstream actually, and they were like, so we could tell from their replies and stuff that they were very excited, and they like were interested in us. But then they were like, so where is this thing? And we were like, well, if you're going to take us, we'll build it, kind of type of thing. So it all happened in that 3-month span. We found an Airstream in a place in Forest Lake, and I got married in July that summer. So it was just like a hectic time. I had my honeymoon in Greece, and we were doing all this stuff. And the financing, to go back to that, was we've been lucky with Baba's to have financing in-house with family and friends. And we did have some bank partners. We still do. So really financing for Baba's has really been a mutual, some families have invested, some friends have invested, nice. and also banking. So it's kind of been a mix.
But that wasn't a hurdle for you, because for some people, the banking piece is just, people say they want to give you money, but sometimes they don't.
No, it's absolutely been a hurdle. It hasn't been easy. I think some of the financing from family has been maybe easier, and friends have been a little easier, but the bank piece is definitely a hurdle, and it's definitely a long process. And a small growing company, banks look at you very differently, and you're all projection based. So there is a lot of there's a lot of difficulty in the banking side specifically.
Yeah. And that you can, it's like, oh, we want to support these businesses. And at the end of the day, if you put your house on the line and you put your other assets on the line, sure, they'll support you. Well, exactly. For a lot of entrepreneurs, that's a pretty scary, risky place to be in.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. I'm glad to see that things are loosening up, but I'd like to see it a little bit more, because I just think we have a lot of good entrepreneurs that if they got some funding, or they got access to funding, or even, management of how to handle your funding and P&L control and operations costs and some of those very basic things that as a small business owner, you sort of stumble along until you figure it out, right? Cost of goods even. And, you guys are importing some products. Has that really impacted your pricing?
Absolutely. So COVID for us, COVID and supply chains and all those things. Prices are up 30-40% across the board, in some of our most used products. So inflation has definitely hit us pretty hard. We were able to raise the prices a little bit in grocery stores, but we definitely saw a lot of our imported products go up, but it was kind of across the board, honestly. Containers, the whole deal was pretty high inflationary costs for us.
Yeah, and you look at inflation costs of food. They say in the Twin Cities it's 8%. I actually think it's a little bit more than that. And then you look at, what can the consumer absorb? And you're also having to compete with these national brands that have more runway to absorb cost. So I imagine as a starting out smaller business, and you guys are doing really well, I just imagine that that's a different conversation. And that probably means you have less take home pay for both of you for, you have to pay employees more because it's harder to find them, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really hard time to be a small business person, I think.
Yeah, there is a lot of challenges, like you said, across the board, like even, when it comes to paying our employees, like we value them so much, and to be able, like Khaled said, to give them this opportunity and for them to come every day and work for us, like it's so important for us to take care of them. And so, there's been a lot of challenges, but I think we've made a lot of progression. And it really is attributed to the support of our community. That's how we've grown, right? And so, the support and the love that the community has shown us has helped Baba's continue to grow and grow and grow. And that way we're able to, have a sustainable business and to take care of our employees and to give them a fair pay. And then also, we now are almost 5 years in the business, and I think we just started to pay ourselves, right, Khaled, like maybe a year and a half ago. So it took a while. So we were giving a lot of our time. And, as you know, a small business takes up a lot of your time. You'd like to think that it'd be a 9 to 5, but a lot of the times, you're working after hours, you're working on the weekends, it blends in. And we're happy to do it too, because we're so proud and we're excited to continue growing this brand. But at the same time, you sacrifice like those first few years, you can't pay yourself. I think it's a rarity, especially as a small business. But thankfully we got there.
It's funny because they say if you've been in business for yourself for 5 years that you're virtually unemployable in any other business. And I do think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's kind of true, myself included. But it is true that like, you don't really even start paying yourself till like year 3, maybe 4. So it's like right when you start to pay yourself, you've become so autonomous that you're virtually unemployable. It's just sort of a funny oxymoron, but you learn a lot.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. You definitely do.
Yeah. And I think because both of our backgrounds too, I come from a journalism background, but I've done a lot of freelancing. And then I worked part-time at the restaurant when I was living in Minnesota. And then Khaled, as he said, was managing the restaurant for many, many years. So we have always kind of been entrepreneurs in some way or another. We've always kind of managed ourselves. And so now after, as you said, like after you hit that 5-year mark and you're like, okay, I think that this business is really legit. It has something. It's something. I can't imagine what it would be like to go work for someone else. I really can't.
I know, me neither. And you guys are doing great. It's super fun to talk to you. I can't wait to put my hands on your product the next time I'm in the grocery store and to buy it, because I just think your story's great. But I also think you're really great people and very grounded in your culture, your community, that your community has supported you guys with financing makes me really happy, because that is how the best small businesses grow, right? It's friends, it's family, it's community. And I'm just really proud of you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yep.